Hi friends, welcome to my channel Renu's Chat and Talk. If you are new, please do subscribe to my channel, like, comment and share my video with your friends and family. So, do you remember the first day, the beginning of verbs? I showed one tabular form, isn't it? Verbs are divided into auxiliary verbs and main verbs. We completed auxiliary verbs, that both the primary auxiliaries, that is, do you remember, be forms, do forms and have forms, and modal auxiliary verbs, modal verbs also. We completed all those completely auxiliary verbs completed. From today onwards we do main verbs. Okay, in main verbs, under this category verbs, there are two types of verbs: transitive verbs and intransitive verbs. What do you mean by transit? What do you mean by transit? Then you can easily understand what are the transitive verbs. Transit means passing on or transfer. Okay, it's just meaning is transfer. What do we transfer? What do we pass? We just see in these examples. First of all, transit, meaning of transit is passing on something to somebody, something like that, something to something, or else it is transferring one thing to another. Here in these examples, why do we call these as transitive verbs? We just see. First of all, in a sentence, we need subject, verb, and object. SVO, subject, verb, and object, three are required, isn't it? Then here subject, actually it subject, it passes on or it transfers its action to object. That is transitive verb. So transitive verb is one which pass on the action from subject to object. It transfers the action from subject to object. Now look at these examples. How does this transfer takes place? First example, you see, she teaches a lesson. What is the subject here? She. Okay. And object, a lesson. And teaches, it's an action word or verb. Now, we transfer or we shift or we pass on this from subject to object. Then we call it as a transitive verb. When the action passes on from, it does not stop here. The action passes on from subject to object. She teaches. It's not stopping there. Something else. She teaches. What does she teach? She teaches a lesson. So the action is passing on from subject to an object, or it transfers from subject to object. Then we call it as a transitive verb. Okay, three are required in that: subject, verb, and object. Verb in any tense form you can take it up. Okay, the woman is selling apples. The woman, subject, is selling, verb, and apples. So it is on passing on the action. Okay, from subject to object. In every sentence, it is like that. They won the match. He likes chocolates. Or I bought a car. He plays cricket. Okay, plenty of sentences you can write using this structure like subject, verb, and object. In this, actually, objects, we have two types of objects: direct and indirect object. We'll see some more examples of that direct and indirect object. First of all, try to understand this. So, passing of action from subject to verb is a transitive verb. Transit means transferring or passing on. So, what is transferred? An action which is passed on from subject to object is transitive verb. Now, two objects are there. In some sentences, two objects are there. Next. We look at these examples. These are also transitive verbs only, but here have used two objects. Okay, there in the previous sentences only one object, but here I used two objects. One is direct object and another one is indirect object. Direct object like this: TV set, book, story, lesson, present. Those are all direct objects. Whereas us, me, them, the children, me, all these are indirect objects. Especially those that are personal pronouns, they are indirect objects. Whereas the other things all are direct objects. Okay. My father bought us a new TV set. What did my father buy? A new TV set. What? What did he buy? A new TV set. For to whom he bought that? For whom he bought that? For us. He bought a new TV set for us. Isn't it? For whom? For us. Then for whom we it is an indirect object. What is direct object? Like that, if you remember, it is easy. What is direct object? Whom? Indirect object. He gave me a book. He gave a book. He gave me. He gave a book. What did he give? He gave a book. But whom did he give? He gave me a book. So book is direct object, me is indirect object. Next, the teacher taught them a lesson. A lesson is direct object. Teacher, what did the teacher teach? Teacher taught a lesson. For whom did she teach? For them. She taught the lesson for them. Okay, like that. What and whom? What? Direct object. Whom? Indirect object. Grandmother told the children a story. What did the grandmother tell? Grandmother told a story. For whom did she tell? For the children. She told the story for the children. Like that. She sent me a present. Present, direct object. Me, indirect object. What did she send? She sent a present. For whom did she send? She sent the present for me. Like that. If you get, then these are direct and indirect objects. So transitive verbs are those where the action passes from subject to object. And sometimes we may get both direct object and indirect object also in the sentence, or single one object also you may get. But compulsory, the structure is subject, verb and object. Now let us see intransitive verbs. Next. So, intransitive verbs are those where the action stops with the subject. Okay? There is no object in this case, and the action does not pass from subject to another noun or pronoun. So, no object at all. Action stops with the subject. There is no transfer of action, there is no pass on the action to object. There's nothing like that. It stops with the subject. Then we call those sentences as intransitive verb, where there is no passing of action, where there is no transfer of action, where the action stops only with the subject. We call those verbs as intransitive verbs. Look at these examples. The baby is sleeping. Okay, the baby is sleeping on the bed or on the floor, on the mat. That's the thing. Okay, but the baby is sleeping. No object at all. Okay, birds fly. Birds fly. There is no transfer of action, isn't it? Birds fly in the sky. Birds sit on the branch of the tree. Okay, there's no transfer of action from subject to object. Hence, we call these as intransitive verbs. Okay, we stood in the corner. We stood in the corner. That's all. Or we waited at the bus stop. No transfer of action, no object in that case. His grandfather died last year. Died last year. So, no passing of action. They laughed at him. No object. I get up daily at 6 o'clock. So here also passing of action not there. The wind was blowing fiercely. the wind was blowing. So it is not, action is not transferred to some other object. So these sentences we call as the intransitive verbs. And transitive verb especially we use them in active passive. When we change from active to passive, those transitive verbs only we use. It's not possible to change these sentences into passive form. Not possible. Only we take transitive verbs, and those sentences only possible where subject of verb and object is S, B, O. That structure is there, then only it is possible to shift or to transform from active to passive. Whereas these intransitive verbs and these sentences, we cannot change them into uh, passive form. Okay. So this is about transitive and intransitive verbs, and we continue in the next video also the main verbs. Thank you for watching my video.